Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Solio Analytics. This is Pras, and it's just Pras today. Unfortunately, Johnny couldn't join us, and it's going to be me solo rambling a little bit about some Solio projections. I've got a wildcard with certain scenarios for you to discuss, and I've also got a free hit team. So, I guess one of the things with so many chips in play is, anything goes. So most of these weeks we're going to try and look at the tool, what are the options, and I'm going to show a really cool way to look at the wildcard and how people can think about when they use Solio to build a wildcard. I wish I knew, Johnny showed it to me yesterday, and I wish I did this when I was building my Game Week 1 team. But we do know it now, so if you're on a wildcard, watch out for that. But it's a time with so much uncertainty, so I'm going to get right into it. And the uncertainty obviously relates to potentially Palmer being out. So the minutes have been adjusted here in his projections to something like 75% availability in Game Week 4 and 50%, I want to say, in Game Week 3. So that's how the Palmer projections have been built. And you have to, you're in crossroads here in between whether you should keep Palmer or not. And I really think it comes down to squad structure, chip strategy, more so than, your conviction on whether Palmer is going to be fit or not. Because, yeah, we may get some news, but ultimately, the leagues for Chelsea are pretty poor, even though it's the first game. You will have to take some kind of a leap of faith. And I'm recording this on a Wednesday night. I don't think Palmer's dropping tonight, but soon before the deadline, he's going to drop as well. So I've already talked to Johnny. His team is set up in a way where he was benching Sarr this week, so he's going to be benching Palmer because he has the luxury to do that. Other teams may see that as an opportunity. When I'll come to my team, I'll talk about the fact that I can see this as an opportunity to maybe spread the funds and get a bench boost out of the way before getting Palmer back. Because when I look at the Solio projections, I'm looking at Palmer, and I think the next game week where I really can't go without him is Game Week 6. Well, I mean, really can't go without him is a little bit extreme, but he's a top 3. He's a top 3 pick in terms of expected points. He's playing Brighton at home. You probably want him for that. And then the next point where actually he's the best captain, according to the projections today, is Game Week 9. So as long as you have a plan to take him out, bring him back, now that's a lot of transfers used, but I think for captaincy, it may be worth it. For captaincy and for getting bench boost out of the way, for my team, it sounds like it may be worth it. Everybody's teams are different. Some people may be looking at it as an opportunity to take him out, spread the funds a little bit, or even afford a Haaland for Game Week 6 and then wildcard back, your Salah Palmer kind of structure in Game Week 7 or 8. So, like I said, it's more team dependent than what the projections are saying. In terms of captaincy, this week it's going to be Bruno. So this is unadjusted, but even in my adjusted Solio projections, Bruno is the top. Whether you believe that or not, I think more people listening to this are going to be Bruno believers than not, and that's nice. So I don't need to sugarcoat it. He's probably the best captain, or actually he is the best captain this week. I don't think people need to overthink it if you have Bruno. If you don't have Bruno and you're sitting on a Palmer, my recommendation and Solio's recommendation would be to bring Bruno in. I mean, if anything, there has been a stroke of luck that you avoided going for Bruno. He misses a penalty. Palmer gets injured, gives you a route to get Bruno the week he's the best captain. So that would be my recommendation. But to be honest, again, the crowd that is listening to this probably either has him or definitely doesn't want to have him. So it's not something that I can advise at the moment in terms of what to do. But, the model suggests that Bruno is the best captain. If you're not somebody who wants to get a Bruno in your team for this week, or you believe Man United are rubbish because they lost to Grimsby, fair enough. That's your choice. That's your opinion. That's what Solio is built on. Adjust his ratings, and then your next best captain should come out to be Haaland, but not by much. Salah is also fine. Cunha is not too far behind. Now, my view of tonight, Cunha played the full game, 90 minutes. Mbumo, Bruno were on the bench, but Sesko also played the full game. So my prediction for Man United is going to be Bruno again as the central midfielder alongside, let's say, Casemiro or Ugarte. It's going to be Mbumo on the right. It's going to be Mount on the left. And it could be Cunha or Sesko on up top. Or it could even be Xerxes. But I think it would be Cunha. So I think it could be Cunha for 70 odd minutes or 60 odd minutes, and then Mount goes off for Sesko. Sesko comes on, Cunha moves to the left. Something like that is what I'm feeling. But we just don't know with fatigue, right? It's early season. Cunha's played a full game. I certainly wouldn't captain him. And if you haven't made a transfer, a lot of people went for Cunha last night before he rose. I would simply go for Mbumo if you wanted to be safer. You also have to think about what would happen if you're going for double Man United midfield. You probably have taken a view that I want to have them for game week 3 and game week 7 when they play Burnley and Sunderland at home, and you later move him out to a Palmer. Maybe that's a route that people can look at. Cunha up to Palmer through a downgrade in for Mateta or somebody. So I've looked at that route. Didn't love it myself because ultimately having one Man United is enough pain as a Man United fan. Quickly on strikers, there's a demand for strikers at the moment as well, simply because of the Palmer money, right? Palmer money has come about, and so people are looking at strikers, and Gyökeres is top, even though he has difficult fixtures around this period. The fact that he's going to be nailed on penalties for the next few weeks while Saka is out, and even after that, he looks good for penalties. That's what the rumors are coming about. So after game week 7 or 8, you want Gyökeres anyway. So some people might just say, I'm going to use the Palmer mini and upgrade a Giu to Gyökeres and downgrade a Palmer to a 5.5 or a 6 million midfielder. Could be Anderson, could be Tillemans, because if you look then down to cheap budget enablers, you have Tillemans pretty high up actually. I always look at this and think, do we need a little bit of adjustment here? But he's higher than Sar for the forecasted period, which is quite high. And those are the two popular buys that people are looking at the moment. 6.5. Indai is pretty high as well at 6.5. But in terms of midfielders, that's about it for budget midfielders with certain minutes, because Wirtz could be an option, but the worse he plays, his minutes could be under threat. Now, I don't want to put that, a seed of doubt under people's minds, but he's not nailed, because there is still that issue that they're trying to solve, which is what happens when Szoboszlai starts in that position. There's McAllister, there's Gravenberch, Gakpo's playing really well, Ekitike is playing really well, and this is even before Isak has joined. So I can see why people got nervous, but somebody with Wirtz, I'm going to be staying put with him. Defenders, very quickly. Gabriel is 6.1, but I'm just, I'm going to avoid this just because, he has those tougher fixtures. I'm hoping that his price comes down and then I can afford him in game week 7. That's at least what the tentative plan is. Chris Wood isn't too far in terms of strikers. So, that's what I had to say in defenders. Van Dijk is pretty good as well, but it just struck to me that Chris Wood is actually not too bad, but he's below Mateta. And yeah, I don't think many people are picking Chris Wood, especially if you're on a free hit 6, because most of his expected output, well, the highest number is that Sunderland at home fixture in game week 6. Other things on defenders. So after Van Dijk, the next big one I see is Porro. Porro's numbers look great. He looks, this is a completely different Spurs team. So if you're taking some set pieces, if you're taking some crosses, and you're playing for a good Thomas Frank defense, then yeah, he's a very good pick. I think the pick of the 5.5s. Although I suspect we'll see a lot more Munozes from next week as well. So that was a little bit on the projections and some thoughts around captaincy, big hitters. Let's go to this new feature which we're trying to bring in. So I've only included here the players, but over time we'll develop this into something more where you can see wisdom of the crowd kind of thing, where what are people doing, what are they editing on Solio, because that tells you where people's minds are. Now, I don't know what people are editing with Salah. Is it his goal output, or is it his minutes, is it his pen share? I don't know, but he is the most edited player on the platform. But Tielemans is interesting. I just mentioned him, and I thought that he looks a little bit high. Maybe people disagree with his penalty share or whatever, but yeah, he's been edited. Palmer Reinders is not surprising at all. He, people expect him to play a different role under Pep. Then the models are still assuming, some share of playing as a defensive midfielder, some as that Gundogan role, and a little bit of that 10 role, but people are adjusting it. What else are the people adjusting? Bruno is no surprise. I have adjusted him myself for a little bit of goals per 90, but even after that, he looks great. So, a lot of times, the way I interact with the platform is not to adjust it because I know better than the model. I adjust it because I want to see what happens if I adjust it. So when I adjusted Bruno's numbers and he was still looking so good, I had to say to myself, why the hell do I not have him? If I still, under my lower beliefs, he's still a good pick. Similarly, Johnny mentioned to me yesterday where he was playing around with Wirtz's numbers, and as soon as he dialed down Wirtz's numbers a little bit, he was not in his optimal team. So this is why he went against Wirtz. So these are things that people are doing, and that is resulting in some changes. Over time, we'll hope to have what exactly are people changing. I don't want to commit on behalf of James, but that's something that we want to have as a feature going forward as well. So I thought that was interesting to share. Next thing I want to come to you is this wildcard 3. So, I mean, everyone shares their wildcard plans, their best wildcard teams, but I think what Solio does differently is it lets you plan a wildcard under different scenarios, which the smart guys call stochastic optimization. And so what this is a robust wildcard plan. And why is it robust is if you see in the figure, the screenshot that I've shared, you see this wildcard 357.2, but then it's branching out into two nodes. There is the first node, which is no transfers made in the next 5 weeks. So what that node is saying is, I want a team in which under 50% of scenario, I don't want any transfers to be made, and it needs to be a robust enough team that takes me there under 50% of scenarios. And in the other 50% of scenario, you can make some transfers and you can do whatever. So this is what it spits out. It's got Raya in goal. It's got Van Dijk, Agbedu, Tarkowski. So, solid centre backs with good minutes. Raya, your solid Arsenal goalkeeper. And I like this because Arsenal has Champions League around some very, very easy fixtures. So I don't know what are the minutes for any of these players, but Raya's robust. Van Dijk always plays. So you can see why this becomes a little bit more robust. Now, in midfield, you have Salah, Bruno. Now, Wirtz is a little bit of a question mark, but the model is still high on him, but it will adjust by the time you reach. But clearly, what the model sees right now is that Burnley home game in Game Week 4, and then in Game Week 5, it sees your Everton at home. And very interestingly, this model actually does Mateta and Salah to Cunha and Haaland in Game Week 6 to make it, a little bit... I don't know. I don't want to call it robust, but that's the path that it has under these scenarios where you're 50% saving a transfer or 50%, going and taking on risk. So I liked this as a format, and it's got Dewsbury Hall, my favorite champion player from Game Week 1, who I didn't end up having. It's got Tielemans, so I think it's a solid midfield. And in attack, it's got Mateta and Gyökeres, who are going to be two popular strikers, I think, after Game Week 4, I believe. Mateta has a very good game, and Gyökeres comes out of this game against Liverpool. So two popular players, I think they will be after Game Week 4. So interesting in this case. Bench of Lacroix, Richards, so double Palace defense, and a cheap attacker. So in this case, of course, there's no bench boost planned in this, right? I mean, if you were to plan a bench boost, it would probably change quite a bit. It would probably start to have 3 strikers and maybe not a word, something like that. So I think I wanted to show this, that you can build a wildcard team in a more robust way if you essentially have a node and you tell that node to not pick any transfers. There's another way you can make your team a little bit different, which is to actually, not the free hit, this one, which is the other free hit, which is the other wildcard. So if you were to wildcard today, you could have a plan where you say, you know what, I'm going to not commit to a free hit 6, but I'm going to say that there's a 50% chance that I will free hit in 6 and 50% chance that I don't free hit. So help me with a team that can do both those things. And so therefore, I'm not committed to it, and I can be a little bit more flexible. Because today we found out, for example, that Crystal Palace have an easier round 4 Carabao Cup game. In round 5, they will, if they win that, then there is a potential that in Game Week 17 they could have a blank. So you don't want to maybe use your free hit chip. You want to keep your free hit chips, or you want to have that optionality. So for all those reasons, you can build a draft where, again, after Game Week 5, you create a decision node and you put a 50% probability to a free hit 6. It can change. You can do 80% or 20, whatever. But here it's a 50-50 of free hit 6 and 50% of not playing your free hit in Game Week 6. So, of course, like I said, there's no other chip here. There's no bench boost. There's nothing else here. But this is an illustrative way to show you how you can build your team on Solio and look at real scenarios that are actually real dilemmas. We also wanted to do a demo today actually on Palmer. Johnny had a really nice thing that he was going to demo on Palmer's uncertainty, on what if Palmer's out for 1 week, what if it's 2 weeks, what if it's 3 weeks, and you apply 25% probability to each of them. Well, the last one is that he's fit. And then you say, what should I do? If in most scenarios it's telling you to keep Palmer, then it's probably, that's your way to model it and to understand that maybe my team is robust enough to keep Palmer. In mine, even on a 25% Palmer is out basis for 2 weeks from now, it was saying, you know what, get rid of him. So that's the difference in terms of how we can again model uncertainty using Solio. Um, One more thing, which is this is free hit 3. A lot of people have been looking at free hit this week, which makes a little bit of sense to me. Not non-Man United believers, people who have a lot of Arsenal and Liverpool who play each other. It's a good time to jump off Salah, get Haaland, get your Man United. That Man United could be the triple Man United that has been recommended here, which is Bruno, Cunha, and Mbumo. You can get your Kudus for this week. You can get João Pedro, who's likely to be on penalties this week if Palmer is out. We saw how well he did in that number 10 role again in Palmer's absence. You can get Chris Wood for this week. West Ham look absolutely dire. They give up so many shots. Strand Larsen scored a brace. Of course, he did in the Carabao Cup. So, I mean, this draft it uses up so much money, or actually uses up exact budget, that it needs to have almost a non-playing bench. I think Agbadou is the only player, but I think this is all good for minutes. So, but to repeat the team, so it's got Sells in goal and Murillo. So your Nottingham Forest is a double defense. You've got Pedro, you've got Collins. Brentford plays Sunderland this week. I would be tempted to get Otara here as well instead of Kudus, but that's a little bit more vibes than what the model is spitting out. Otara still has to develop, and it would be a little bit more punty, but you could do that. So triple Man United midfield. You could again go Dorgu instead of one of the midfielders, get Otara in there. That could be a viable route. Haaland, João Pedro, and Chris Wood. This is going to be very popular if it's a free hit. I don't think there's much to debate there, especially on a free hit this week. And then the rubbish bench. So this would be the Solio optimal free hit. But as you guys know, if you've used the platform, you make the same free hit team tomorrow. The market odds change. Maybe it's because Palmer is definitely out or definitely not out, and then it changes Pedro's probabilities. I did this, or this screenshot was done before the Man United game. Maybe now Cunha has played 90 minutes. Maybe his odds or his minutes projections have gone down slightly. So maybe Dorgu becomes more optimal. So you obviously need to run this. But I wanted to share here what Solio is giving on a, I want to say real-time basis, but just before the Man United game. So that was really it for this. I told you it's going to be a short one. But here is my team for this week, and a little bit of what I'm trying to plan. So I've got Sells in goal, who looks decent for value. I've got Anderson, Pedro Porro, Van der Ven, and Richards. And at the moment, of course, Palmer is on the bench. He's not being played, and I have to debate what to do with him. I've got Reinders, Salah, Bruno, captain, Wirtz, and Bruno is my number of Bruno is lower because I've adjusted Bruno, but still he's the best captain. This is what I was talking about. I've got Strand Larsen and Watkins. So I think the team looks fine. The couple of uncertainties are Strand Larsen. Is he still going to be at Wolves? Every day that passes, I'm seeing more of Wolves is strong in their stance or whatever, but you give them 5 million more and they will sell. So I have to also plan for some uncertainty that Strand Larsen just doesn't show up against Everton because he's having his medical at St. James's Park or something. So there is some uncertainty there. So this, in addition to the fact that I'm just not very confident on playing this double defense of Richards and and Anderson. I mean, both are tougher fixtures away to Chelsea, away to Villa. Even though there's DEFCON potential, I would ideally only want to play one of them. So the thinking here is that I would do Palmer to somebody. That somebody could be Anderson from Forest. It could be Tielemans from Villa. It could be Sarr from Crystal Palace, and then upgrade Guiu up to Mateta. And what this would do is give me quite a nice squad of 15 that would cover me for a Strand Larsen absence this week, where I would probably bench whoever I get as the midfielder, maybe Sarr or Tielemans, and they would sit on the bench and they would come on if Strand Larsen misses out. Or, and it would also help me set up for a bench boost 5. So I'm really thinking about bench boost 5 for a few reasons. A lot of people are on Sanchez and Dubravka. For them, bench boost 5 makes less sense because Sanchez is away to Man United, whereas Sells actually has a good fixture in game week 5. So that's already one more reason than why a lot of the analytics managers won't go for game week 5 kind of structure. And there's many other reasons. Like I'm going to be moving out of my double Spurs defenders, moving one of them to Munoz, and if that becomes a Munoz, then I'll be free hitting in game week 6. So it's all linked. And so based on that plan, my most optimal route is, at least from Solio's perspective, is Palmer down to Tielemans and Guiu up to Mateta. Next week I would do Van der Ven up to Munoz, and that would give me a solid 15 for a bench boost. Well, I say solid with fingers firmly crossed that everybody's fit and healthy. I would still have one extra transfer to use if I were to need that for game week 5 as well, if I wanted to use it. But otherwise, hopefully I don't have to use it. I go into the game week 6 with a free hit, and in game week 7 I have 2 free transfers. One of them will be used to get an Arsenal defender. So Sells to Raya makes most sense because Sells' fixtures turned pretty bad. And then the second one is just used for a rainy day. Eventually, the idea would be Watkins would become Gyökeres, and Mateta and Wirtz would become Palmer and a cheap guy. Very roughly, that's the path that I have in mind. Things change every single week if a certain player is changed. So, of course, I will discuss it as and when. But that's it. A little bit of a short and sweet video on Solio, our thoughts on wildcard, our thoughts on free hit, and my team. We will hopefully see you next week with myself and Johnny. Take care.